At New Year's dinner, my greedy daughter-in-law yelled, "Stop getting in the way with that noisy cane." Less than 24 hours later, I called the bank and canceled the mortgage. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The sound of my cane tapping against the hardwood floor echoed through Derek's foyer as I made my way inside. 6 months since my hip surgery, and I still needed the support, though the doctor assured me it was temporary. The house smelled of roasted turkey and cinnamon, the kind of warm, inviting scents that should have made me feel welcome. Instead, I felt like an intruder. "Mom, you made it." Derek's voice carried that forced cheerfulness I'd grown accustomed to since he married Jessica 3 years ago. He appeared in the doorway, his smile not quite reaching his eyes as he glanced nervously toward the kitchen. "Of course I made it. Sweetheart, it's New Year's dinner." I adjusted my grip on the cane, trying to minimize the noise it made against the floor. Even that small consideration felt exhausting. The living room buzzed with conversation. Derek's colleagues from the accounting firm mingled with Jessica's friends, their laughter sharp and frequent. I recognized a few faces from previous gatherings, though none had ever made much effort to include me in their conversations. At 68, I'd learned to expect being overlooked at these events. Jessica emerged from the kitchen wearing a stunning red dress that probably cost more than my monthly medication budget. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked every inch the successful marketing executive she was, commanding attention effortlessly. "Margaret," she said, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. "So glad you could join us." "Thank you for having me, dear." I kept my tone neutral, though something in her expression set my nerves on edge. As we moved toward the dining room, my cane struck the hardwood with each step. The sound seemed amplified in the sudden quiet that fell over the group. I tried to walk more carefully, but the uneven rhythm of my gait made silence impossible. "Jesus Christ!" Jessica's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Stop interrupting with that noisy cane. Some of us are trying to have a conversation here." The room went dead silent. Every face turned toward us, some shocked, others embarrassed for me. My cheeks burned with humiliation as I stood there. Gripping my cane so tightly, my knuckles went white. Derek cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Jess, maybe me, Derek. I'm tired of tiptoeing around this. Your mother makes more noise than a construction site every time she visits." The words hit me like physical blows. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor I'd apparently been disturbing so much. Behind Jessica, I could see Derek's face flushing red, but not with anger at his wife's cruelty. With embarrassment. At me. "I can wait in the car," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "That's not necessary," Derek said quickly, though he still wouldn't meet my eyes. Let's have dinner." But Jessica wasn't finished. "Look, Margaret, I know you're going through a tough time with your hip and all, but this is our home. We have guests. Maybe next time you could consider whether you're really up for social gatherings." The dismissal was complete. Not only had she humiliated me in front of everyone, but she'd made it clear I wasn't welcome in what she considered her domain, the house that I had made possible. I thought about the check I'd written 3 years ago, $60,000 for their down payment, money I'd saved for decades from my teacher's pension, money that had made this beautiful home, this perfect life, possible for them. Money that Jessica had never thanked me for, not once. "I understand," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill over. "I'll be more careful." The dinner that followed was a blur of forced conversation and sidelong glances. I barely touched my food, each bite sitting like lead in my stomach. Jessica held court at the head of the table, regaling everyone with stories about her latest marketing campaign, her recent promotion, the vacation to Italy they were planning. All of it funded, in part, by my contribution to their mortgage. All of it made possible by my generosity, which had apparently bought me nothing but contempt. When dessert was served, I excused myself quietly. Derek walked me to the door, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Mom, about what Jessica said." "It's fine, sweetheart." I patted his arm, forcing a smile. "She's right. I should be more considerate." He looked relieved that I wasn't making a scene, wasn't demanding an apology. His relief cut deeper than his wife's cruelty. As I drove home through the dark streets, Jessica's words echoed in my mind. But underneath the humiliation, something else was growing. Something cold and determined. I'd been considerate long enough. The silence in my small apartment felt deafening after the chaos of Derek's dinner party. I set my purse down carefully, my hands still trembling from the evening's humiliation. The cane clattered against the kitchen counter as I tried to steady myself, and even here, in my own home, the sound made me wince. I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did anymore, but tonight felt like an exception. The burgundy liquid burned slightly as it went down, a welcome distraction from the ache in my chest. 68 years old, and I'd never felt so small. I sank into my worn recliner, the one Derek had always teased me about keeping. "Mom, this thing is older than I am," he'd say, but it was comfortable and familiar. Unlike his wife's cold leather furniture that looked beautiful but felt like sitting on ice, the photo on my side table caught my eye. Derek's college graduation. He looked so proud in his cap and gown, his arm around my shoulders as we posed outside the university auditorium. I remembered that day so clearly. The pride in his eyes when he walked across that stage, the way he'd hugged me afterward and said, "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom." $43,000. That's what his education had cost me. 4 years of working double shifts at the elementary school, tutoring kids after hours, and spending my summers cleaning offices to make ends meet. I'd never told him how many dinners I'd skipped, how many bills I'd paid late, how many times I'd worn shoes with holes in them because his tuition came first. I'd never told him because that's what mothers do. We sacrifice silently and we do it gladly, but tonight, that silence felt less like love and more like stupidity. My phone buzzed. Derek's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Mom, I just wanted to call and, well, Jessica feels bad about what happened tonight." Even through the phone, I could hear the lie in his voice. Jessica didn't feel bad. Derek felt uncomfortable, and this was his attempt to smooth things over without actually addressing what had happened. "It's fine, honey. I understand I can be disruptive." "No, Mom, that's not—" He sighed heavily. "Look, Jessica's under a lot of stress at work. She didn't mean to snap like that." There it was. The excuse I'd been expecting. Jessica's stress, Jessica's work, Jessica's feelings. What about mine? "Of course, dear. These things happen." Good. I'm glad you understand. Maybe next time we can have dinner at your place instead? Might be more comfortable for everyone. More comfortable for Jessica. He meant. So she wouldn't have to endure the sound of my medical equipment in her perfect home. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness, not bothering to turn on the lights. The conversation replayed in my mind, but it wasn't Derek's weak apology that bothered me most. It was the realization that this wasn't the first time. Jessica had been testing boundaries for 3 years, and I'd let her. The snide comments about my outdated clothes, the way she'd rearrange furniture after I sat on it, as if I'd contaminated it somehow, the Christmas when she'd exchanged the gift I'd given her right in front of me, claiming it wasn't really her style, and Derek. Sweet Derek, who'd once defended me from playground bullies, now stood by while his wife treated me like an unwelcome burden. I walked to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept important documents, bank statements, insurance papers, and there at the bottom, the folder I was looking for, the mortgage documents for Derek and Jessica's house. My signature was right there next to Derek's. Co-signer. I'd forgotten the legal terminology, but the financial reality came flooding back. When they'd applied for the loan 3 years ago, Derek's credit wasn't quite good enough on its own. They'd needed someone with a stable income and good credit history to guarantee the mortgage. They'd needed me. I spread the papers out on my kitchen table, reading through the terms I'd barely paid attention to at the time. I'd been so happy that Derek was buying his first home, so proud that I could help make his dreams come true. The loan officer had explained that as co-signer, I was equally responsible for the payments, but Derek had assured me it was just a formality. "We've got this covered, Mom. Your name is just there to make the bank happy." But looking at these documents now, I realized something Derek might not have fully understood, something I certainly hadn't grasped at the time. As co-signer, I wasn't just responsible for payments if they defaulted. I had legal rights to the property, The house Jessica considered her domain, the house where I was no longer welcome to walk freely without apologizing for the sound of my medical equipment. I was part owner of that house. My hands weren't trembling anymore as I reached for my phone. It was past 9. But my neighbor, Mrs. Chen's son, was a real estate attorney. I'd helped him with his homework when he was in elementary school, back when I was still teaching. Mrs. Chen? It's Margaret Walsh. I'm sorry to call so late, but I have a legal question about property rights. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Mrs. Chen's son had been helpful, confirming what I'd suspected about my rights as a co-signer. But he'd also suggested I speak with someone who specialized in family financial matters. These situations can get complicated, Mrs. Walsh. You want to make sure you understand all your options. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table. The mortgage documents still spread out where I'd left them the night before. In the daylight, the numbers looked different somehow. More real. More significant. Derek's phone calls started around 10. I let the first one go to voicemail, then the second. By the third call, I picked up. Mom, where are you? I've been calling all morning. I'm at home, sweetheart. Just having a quiet morning. Are you okay? You sound different. I almost laughed. Different. If only he knew how different I was feeling. I'm fine, Derek. Just tired from last night. About that, Jessica wanted me to call. She really does feel bad about what happened. She's been under so much pressure at work, and you know how she gets when she's stressed. There was that word again. Stress. As if Jessica's discomfort justified treating me like an inconvenience in the home I'd helped them buy. I understand, honey. Good. I knew you would. You're the best, Mom. Listen, Jessica was thinking maybe we could take you out to dinner next weekend. Somewhere nice. Her treat. Her treat. With money they could afford to spend because they weren't paying rent, thanks to the house I'd helped them purchase. That's very thoughtful of her. Great! I'll have her call you to set it up. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to believe this was genuine remorse, that Jessica had recognized how cruel she'd been. But I'd lived too long and seen too much to be that naive. This was damage control. Jessica was worried I might cause problems, so she was offering the minimum gesture necessary to keep me quiet and compliant. At 11:30, I drove to the office of Patricia Hendricks, the attorney Mrs. Chen's son had recommended. Her practice was in a modest building downtown, the kind of place that specialized in helping ordinary people with ordinary problems. Patricia was about my age, with steel gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She listened without judgment as I explained the situation, occasionally taking notes on a yellow legal pad. You have several options, Margaret, she said when I finished. As a co-signer, you do have legal standing regarding the property. The question is what you want to accomplish. I want them to understand that I'm not just a bank account with feelings they can ignore. Patricia nodded. The nuclear option would be to demand immediate payment of your portion of the mortgage or force a sale of the property. But that's a last resort. It would likely destroy your relationship with your son permanently. What about less drastic measures? You could remove yourself as co-signer, but only if they can qualify for refinancing without you. Given that they needed you initially, that might not be possible. Or, she paused, studying my face. You could simply let them know about your legal rights without immediately exercising them. Sometimes awareness is enough to change behavior. I left Patricia's office with more questions than answers, but also with something I hadn't had in a long time. Options. That afternoon, I did something I rarely did. I looked up Jessica on social media. I'd never been one for Facebook or Instagram, but Derek had shown me Jessica's accounts before, proud of her professional success and social media presence. What I found made my blood run cold. Posted just 2 hours ago was a photo of their perfectly appointed living room, captioned, "Finally recovered from hosting last night's dinner party. Some guests require more patience than others. Hosting challenges, family drama, cheek are blessed." The comments below were worse. Jessica's friends commiserating about difficult family members and boundary issues. One particularly cruel comment read, "Girl, you're a saint for putting up with that. Some people just don't know when they're not wanted." Jessica had hearted that comment. I screenshot everything before closing the browser. The woman who was supposedly feeling guilty about her behavior was actually mocking me online, turning my humiliation into content for her social media followers. My phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. Margaret. Hi. Derek told me he talked to you about dinner next weekend. Her voice was sickeningly sweet, the same tone she'd used when she wanted something. Yes, he mentioned it. Great. I was thinking that little Italian place on 5th Street. Nothing too fancy, just the three of us having a nice meal together. I really want to clear the air about last night. That's very thoughtful of you, Jessica. Perfect. How about Saturday at 7? I'll make reservations. After she hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, thinking about her social media posts, her fake apology call, and the dinner invitation that was clearly designed to make Derek think his wife was making an effort. I thought about $43,000 in college tuition, $60,000 for their house down payment, the countless birthday gifts, Christmas presents, and emergency loans that were never quite paid back. I thought about being treated like a burden in the home my money had helped them buy. Patricia had talked about the nuclear option, warning me it would likely destroy my relationship with Derek permanently. But as I sat there in the growing darkness, I wondered if that relationship was already destroyed. Maybe it was time to find out what I was really worth to them. Friday morning, I dressed carefully in my best navy suit and drove to First National Bank, the same bank where I'd co-signed Derek's mortgage 3 years ago, full of hope and pride in my son's achievement. Today, I felt neither hope nor pride, only a cold determination that surprised me with its intensity. The loan officer, Mr. Peterson, remembered me from the original mortgage application. His smile was warm and professional as he pulled up Derek and Jessica's account on his computer screen. I need to understand my options regarding the co-signed mortgage, I said, keeping my voice steady. He scrolled through the account details, his expression growing more serious. Well, Mrs. Walsh, as co-signer, you have the right to be removed from the loan, but only if the primary borrowers can qualify for refinancing without your guarantee. Given their current debt-to-income ratio, he paused, checking additional screens. I'm afraid that's unlikely. What if I want to exercise my ownership rights? His eyebrows raised slightly. You mean demanding payment of your portion? That would trigger an immediate review of the loan terms. If they can't pay your share within 30 days, the property would likely go into foreclosure proceedings. The weight of those words settled over me. Foreclosure. It sounded so harsh, so final. But then I thought about Jessica's social media posts, her fake concern, her complete lack of genuine remorse. What would my portion be worth? Mr. Peterson calculated quickly. Based on current market value and the amount paid down so far, your share would be approximately $180,000. $180,000. More than enough to buy myself a smaller place, maybe a nice condo with no stairs and no memories of being treated like an unwelcome burden. I'd like to proceed with formal notification of my intent to collect my ownership share. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Mrs. Walsh, I have to ask, are you sure about this? These situations can become very complicated, especially when family is involved. I'm sure. The paperwork took an hour to complete. Legal notifications would be sent to Derek and Jessica within 24 hours, informing them of my decision to exercise my ownership rights and demanding payment of my share within 30 days. I drove home with a strange sense of lightness, as if I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. Saturday evening came faster than I'd expected. I arrived at the Italian restaurant at exactly 7 o'clock, wearing the same navy suit I'd worn to the bank. Derek and Jessica were already seated at a corner table, Jessica looking radiant in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mom! Derek stood to hug me, his smile bright but his eyes anxious. You look great. Thank you, sweetheart. I settled into my chair, noting how Jessica's smile seemed forced. Margaret, you look lovely. That color is so classic on you. Classic. Code for old-fashioned, I was learning to translate Jessica's particular brand of passive aggression. We ordered wine, made small talk about the weather, discussed Derek's latest project at work. Jessica was being unusually attentive, asking about my physical therapy, complimenting my earrings, even suggesting we should get together more often. It was a masterful performance, and under different circumstances, I might have been fooled. "I really do want to apologize again for New Year's Eve," Jessica said as our entrees arrived. "I was completely out of line. Derek's told me how much you mean to him, and I realize I haven't always been as welcoming as I should be." "These things happen," I replied, cutting my chicken carefully. "I was thinking we could start fresh. Maybe you could come over next Sunday for dinner. I could make that pot roast you mentioned loving." "That's very thoughtful." Derek looked relieved, clearly believing his wife's performance was working. Jessica seemed emboldened by my calm responses. "And I want you to know, Margaret, that Derek and I both consider you part of our family. Our home is your home. Our home, not their home." Interesting choice of words. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it discreetly, a confirmation from Mr. Peterson that the legal notices had been delivered that afternoon. "Is everything all right?" Jessica asked, noticing my phone. "Just a confirmation about some paperwork I had done yesterday." Derek's phone rang then. He frowned at the number, not recognizing it. "Sorry, I should probably take this. It might be work." He stepped outside to answer, leaving Jessica and me alone at the table. Her warm demeanor shifted almost immediately. "Look, Margaret, I know we've had our differences, but I hope you understand that Derek and I are building a life together. We need space to do that without—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Without feeling like we're being watched or judged all the time. I understand perfectly." "Good. I'm glad we can be honest with each other." Through the restaurant window, I could see Derek pacing back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear. His face had gone pale, and he kept running his free hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. When he came back to the table, his hands were shaking. "Mom, we need to talk. There's been some kind of mistake with the bank. They're saying you want to—" He looked around the restaurant, lowering his voice. "They're saying you want your money back from the house?" Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. "What?" I dabbed my lips with my napkin, taking my time. "It's not a mistake, Derek." The color drained from Jessica's face. "Margaret, what are you talking about? I'm exercising my rights as co-owner of your property. I'd like my share of the investment back, please." Derek stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Mom, you can't be serious. $180,000. 30 days. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Around us, other diners continued their conversations, oblivious to the bomb that had just exploded at our table. "This is because of New Year's Eve?" Derek's voice cracked. "Mom?" Jessica apologized. "We're trying to make things right." I looked at my son, this man I'd sacrificed so much for, who'd stood by while his wife humiliated me, and then tried to smooth it over with a dinner invitation. "This isn't about New Year's Eve, Derek. This is about respect. And self-respect." I stood up, placing my napkin on the table. "Thank you for dinner. It was very illuminating." As I walked away, I could hear Jessica's voice rising behind me, all pretense of sweetness gone. "Derek, do something. She can't just—" But she could, and she had. The silence in my apartment that night was different from the crushing quiet I'd endured after New Year's Eve. This silence felt powerful, like the calm at the eye of a storm I'd finally learned to control. Derek called at 11:30. I let it ring through to voicemail, then again at midnight. By the third call at 12:15, I answered. "Mom, please, we need to talk about this." His voice was strained, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. My son, who'd always been so confident, so sure of himself, sounded like a frightened child. "There's nothing to discuss, Derek. The paperwork is filed. You have 30 days. "But Mom, we don't have that kind of money." "You know we don't. Then you'll need to refinance or sell." "We can't refinance without you. The bank already told us our credit isn't good enough on its own. And if we sell—" His voice broke. "Mom, this is our home." Our home. The same words Jessica had used at dinner, though with very different meaning now. "You should have thought about that before you allowed your wife to treat me like an unwanted burden." "Jessica's sorry. She's really, truly sorry. She's upstairs crying right now." I doubted that. Jessica struck me as more likely to be upstairs plotting than crying. 30 days, Derek." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning brought a parade of visitors. Derek arrived first, looking like he hadn't slept. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled. "Mom, please. Can we just talk about this reasonably?" I let him in, made coffee, and listened as he pleaded his case. The house was their life, their future. They'd put so much work into it, so much love. Surely we could work something out. "What kind of something?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe we could set up a payment plan. We could pay you back over time? With what money? You barely make your current mortgage payments." His face crumpled. "Then what do you want from us? Respect, Derek. Something I should have demanded years ago." He left without resolution, and an hour later, Jessica arrived. Gone was the polished professional I was used to seeing. Her makeup was smeared, her expensive dress replaced with jeans and a wrinkled sweater. "Margaret, please. We need to fix this. Come in, Jessica." She perched on the edge of my sofa like a bird ready to take flight. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't always been the daughter-in-law you deserved. That's true. But this will destroy us. We'll lose everything. You'll lose the house. You won't lose everything. Yes, we will." Her composure cracked completely. "Do you know how much Derek loves that house? How proud he is of it? If we lose it, he'll never forgive me. Our marriage won't survive this." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Are you asking me to save your marriage? I'm asking you to give us a chance. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll delete those social media posts. She stopped, realizing she'd revealed her hand. "You'll delete the posts where you mocked me to your friends?" Her face went white. "You saw those?" "I saw them. And the comments. And your response to them." Tears started flowing then, real ones this time. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I was angry and embarrassed, and I handled it all wrong. But please don't destroy my marriage over this." "I'm not destroying anything, Jessica. I'm simply claiming what's mine." She left shortly after, and the house fell quiet again, but not for long. Over the next week, the calls intensified. Derek phoned multiple times daily, his desperation growing more apparent with each conversation. Jessica tried a different approach, sending flowers with increasingly frantic apology cards. "To the mother-in-law I should have treasured," read one. "Please forgive a foolish woman's mistakes," read another. My sister Helen called from Phoenix. "Margaret, Derek contacted me. He's beside himself. Surely you can work something out." Even Mrs. Chen from next door stopped by, clearly sent by Derek to appeal to my better nature. "Margaret, that boy loves you so much. Maybe there's room for forgiveness." But the most telling call came on day 10. Derek's voice was hollow, defeated. "Jessica moved out yesterday. I felt a pang of something, not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either." "I'm sorry to hear that. She said she can't watch me lose everything because of her mistakes. She's staying with her sister until we figure this out." "And what are you going to figure out?" "I don't know, Mom. I really don't know." The silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken hurts and disappointments. "She's not a bad person," he said finally. She doesn't understand what family means. Not the way you taught me." "Did I teach you that, Derek? Because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem like the lesson took." Another long pause. "You're right. I failed you. I've been failing you for years, and I didn't even see it. For the first time since this began, my resolve wavered slightly. This was my son, my only child, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for. 20 days left," I said softly, and hung up. That night, I stood at my kitchen window looking out at the city lights, wondering if I was doing the right thing. Part of me wanted to call Derek back, to fix this somehow, but I thought about Jessica's social media posts, about years of subtle disrespect, about being treated like an inconvenience in the home my money had bought. Some lessons, I realized, could only be learned the hard way. On day 27, Derek appeared at my door. Not the broken man who'd been calling me in desperation, but my son. Really my son. For the first time in years, he was alone. "May I come in?" I stepped aside, noting the changes in him. His clothes were rumpled, his face drawn with exhaustion, but there was something different in his eyes. Something clearer. "I came to tell you that you're right." I gestured for him to sit, but he remained standing, hands clasped behind his back like a schoolboy about to recite a difficult lesson. "I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to figure out how to fix this situation. How to find the money, How to convince you to change your mind. How to save the house. He looked directly at me. But that's not really the problem, is it? What do you think the problem is? The problem is that I forgot who raised me. I forgot what you sacrificed for me. I let someone else's voice become louder than my conscience. His voice cracked slightly. I let my wife humiliate my mother, and then I tried to sweep it under the rug with dinner invitations and weak apologies. I sat down slowly, my cane resting against the arm of my chair. Derek, no, let me finish, please. He took a shaky breath. Jessica filed for divorce yesterday. She's convinced this is all your fault, that you're vindictive and cruel. She can't understand that actions have consequences. I felt a stab of something. Not quite guilt, but close to it. I'm sorry about your marriage. I'm not. The words came out firmly, surprising us both. I'm sorry it took losing everything to see what I'd become, but I'm not sorry it's over. He moved to the window, looking out at the street where he'd played as a child. I called the bank this morning. I'm letting the house go into foreclosure. I can't make the payment without Jessica's income, and even if I could, he turned back to me. I don't want to live there anymore. Too many memories of being someone I don't like. Derek, that's not necessary. We can work something out. No, Mom, we can't, and we shouldn't. He came and sat across from me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I need to start over, really start over, and I need to do it in a way that honors the woman who raised me. Tears pricked at my eyes. You don't have to lose your home because of this. It was never really my home anyway. Not the way I was living in it. He reached over and took my hand. I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. I nodded. Would you consider looking for a place together? Not me moving in with you, not you moving in with me, but us finding something new. A duplex maybe, or a house with an in-law suite. Somewhere we can both have our independence, but also have each other. The suggestion caught me completely off guard. Derek, I don't need you to take care of me. I know you don't. But maybe I need to learn how to be your son again. Really be your son. Over the following months, that's exactly what happened. Derek moved into a small apartment after the foreclosure, and we began looking for properties together. Not out of financial necessity, but out of choice. We found a charming duplex in a quiet neighborhood, each side complete and private, but connected by a shared garden where we could have coffee in the mornings when we both felt like company. Jessica tried to contact Derek several times during the divorce proceedings, alternating between pleading for reconciliation and blaming me for destroying their marriage. He didn't respond to any of her messages. She'll never understand, he told me one evening as we planted tomatoes in our shared garden. She'll always believe you were vindictive rather than seeing that I failed as a son. Maybe that's for the best. The $180,000 from the house sale gave me options I'd never had before. I bought my half of the duplex outright and invested the rest conservatively. For the first time in my adult life, I felt financially secure, but more than that, I felt respected. Derek had taken a job with a smaller accounting firm, one that paid less but valued work-life balance. He started coming over for dinner twice a week, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. We cooked together, watched old movies, and slowly rebuilt the relationship that had been buried under years of poor choices and toxic influences. One evening, 6 months after that disastrous New Year's dinner, Derek showed up at my door with a bottle of wine and a sheepish grin. I have something to tell you. Oh? I ran into Jessica today. She's engaged again. To her boss, actually. I raised an eyebrow. That was fast. She seemed happy. Genuinely happy, in a way she never was with me. He uncorked the wine and poured 2 glasses. She told me she hopes someday I'll understand that she never meant to hurt anyone. Do you believe her? Derek considered this seriously. I think she believes it. I think she's genuinely incapable of understanding the impact of her actions on other people. It's not malicious, exactly. It's just limited. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset through the kitchen window. Are you happy, Derek? He smiled. The first completely genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. Yeah, Mom, I really am. Are you? I thought about the question seriously. Happy seemed like such a simple word for the complex mix of emotions I felt. Relief, certainly. Peace, definitely. Pride in standing up for myself. Gratitude for second chances. Yes, I said finally. I think I am. As we finished our wine, I realized that Jessica had been wrong about one thing. This hadn't been about vindictiveness or cruelty. It had been about teaching an important lesson to my son, to his wife, and most importantly, to myself. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes respect has to be demanded rather than hoped for. And sometimes the most generous thing you can do is refuse to enable someone else's worst behavior. My cane leaned against the counter, no longer a source of shame, but simply a tool I needed. In this house, in this life I'd chosen for myself, I could walk as loudly or as quietly as I pleased. And I was finally, truly home. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below. And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.